Welcome everybody to the first ever Elements podcast. My name is Stephen Russell, founder and director of Elements Support and ex-care leaver. Today I am joined by Dave, the main man himself, who used to support me back in 1994 in my first ever care home, and somebody who has really supported me on this pain to purpose journey. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let myself and Dave show you how we crack up like cracker on a Christmas tree.
See young people as a young tree. A young tree hasn't really got stability. That's why when I was at school, I used to always see them plant the trees and then put this kind of a big piece of wood next to it. No, it was thicker than bamboo. It was actually like a 3x3 next to it.
Yeah.
And then they used to tape it with a black tape and staple it until the tree got strong enough to grow up straight. And that's how I see young people. They need that support by them to allow them to grow. But I see older people as a firm tree trunk, that no matter what wind blows, they're grounded, they're rooted. That's my concept. So
that's a great way of putting it.
I felt I had to be that firm thing standing by you. So I started social work after my parents became emergency foster carers, and my life just took a journey from there. I think it was a couple of the social workers that used to come around the house. They noticed how I interacted with the young people that my parents had in the home, and they said, "You'd make a good social worker." But looking back at it now and seeing my journey, now a father of three, and watching you grow, seeing Malachi turn from a baby to 13, and Alyssa and Corey come along, it's been a journey.
Yeah.
So from social work, I went into in Nottingham for about 3 years. Moved to Birmingham after I got married.
Yeah.
It's really strange because I always saw you as a cute kid.
Yeah.
So at school, you have the teachers always have like teacher's pet type of thing. I would say in the children's home, you were one of my favourites. In the sense to say, as I said, you were humorous. You had a lot of humour to you. I remember once I told you off, or I was trying to tell you off, and you were sitting at the dinner table. You were being either humorously rude or something.
Yeah.
And I tried to tell you off, and you just looked in my eyes and says, "Me and Dave crack up like crack on Christmas tree," and I just burst into laughter. I just couldn't keep my face serious, and you just were smiling, and I think that was a connection there. Just you had. You masked your pain very well.
Yeah.
So I remember coming into your bedroom just before you were to go to bed, and you were on top of the wardrobe, and I said, "Stephen, come down from on top of the wardrobe, you need to get into your bed." And you can't, and then you just said, "Would you be my dad?" And I thought that was quite, I remember that clearly. And I always used to look at it and say, "I wonder what's happened to Stephen, I wonder where he is." Why I said that, you said you were pretty messed up. This is the bit that I'm a bit confused about. You then, after I think I dropped you to your place, and I was kind of blown away by this, how should I put it? On your mirror, you had something written up.
Yeah.
And on that mirror was, and this is one of the things that made me realize, gotta stay with this guy, gotta help him. On your mirror, you had like plans of, I've gotta get rid of cannabis, I've got to learn to drive, got to do this, got to do that. You had negative things that you wanted to get out of your life. You'd already started a wheel of turning in your mind, which you had processed and put on the mirror. And you told me you put it on the mirror that you could see it every day. That was another thing that again made me realize this guy needs help to focus to where he wants to go. But he definitely wants to go somewhere. Now, what I saw in that mirror, I'm trying to paraphrase what I saw, but it was very structured.
Yeah.
I want to do this. I want to do that. I want
Money, stop smoking, treat people with more respect, get a job.
Well, you had
a job. Get a job that paid a bit better.
Yeah.
A child may forget what you did and what you said and where you went and who you was with, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Right.
And essentially that's the key, isn't it? Is that when I reflect back onto memories that I have of you as a child, yes, I remember the camping trips, and I vaguely remember you coming in when I was on top of the wardrobe, very vaguely, but that's a memory that you have that I don't hold strong in my head. I remember little bits around Christmas, but I struggle, but what I can clearly remember is how you made me feel. You made me feel valued. You made me feel worthy. You had time for me. I say to people like, you were the type of person in the home that, you know, you weren't clocking off to go home. You were saying, is everything okay?
I guess, in all honesty, we don't see ourselves, but what I was seeing was a lost person. I remember when I met you, you wore like about sometimes 2 or 3 tracksuit bottoms.
Pack it out to make myself look bigger. Yeah.
3 jumpers. So you were totally insecure in terms of your image and your size. So there was that, and then you had this nervousness to you that I could see. You kind of masked well, but I could see like a shiver in your hand. I just felt that I had to support you. I just felt. I think the mirror, that statement on the mirror of you making in your mind, this is what you want to do. I could see that you were trying.
Did you feel responsible for me?
I wouldn't say responsible, but I saw. If I'll be honest with you, if I'll be totally honest with you, my parents were emergency foster carers, and we looked after children, and there was one guy named John. He came to our house, and my parents loved him. They fed him, they gave him food, but I took him to the park and talked with him and stuff. I did the social side of things. My parents did the essential side, and I do recall him wanting to go to a rich family, and he left our house and he went to the family of his dreams. And I think the girl accused him of either doing something in a sexual manner, and he found a car in a back place, and he turned the gas in and he committed suicide. And that left such a heaviness in my spirit, because I also was a young person. I was probably about 18 at the time, so I had my problems growing up as a child, and I just felt the pain of him taking his life. I remember him saying, I didn't do it, but for him to actually take his own life, and I remember his face, and I remember him when he used to say to me, I didn't do it, David, and blah blah blah. So when I met you, I didn't relate you as John, but I related you as somebody needing help, and I didn't want anything negative to happen to you. I saw you as lost. I could see you were lost. I just didn't want. I just wanted to make sure that you was all right. So that's one of the things that happened. Yeah, it's funny, but yeah, it's a strange, some of the things that make us do what we do. John had become a part of our family, so that made it hard. So when he wanted my parents had 9 of us, so we had a big house, but he wanted the luxuries and stuff. He got the family he wanted, but he also got that situation wasn't the best situation for him, because whatever happened was heavy enough for him to feel that he had to take his life. So that was one of the things that riveted in me a lot of my commitment to young people. You weren't easy, Steve. I'll be honest with you, you weren't easy, but at the same time, we have to look past a young person's, as it were, level of rejection. Sometimes when they're presenting this sense of rejection to you, it's not really you. They're venting on somebody they feel safe with. They're releasing. I don't think young people would release a lot of their frustration on somebody they didn't feel safe with, because they don't know how that person's going to respond to them.
That's right.
So they release a lot of their frustration on the people that they feel the safest with.
It's true.
I didn't take it personal, because I also saw that thing on the mirror of what you wanted to achieve, and I wanted to make sure that And I remember sticking with you with your learning to revise your driving theory, and sticking with you till you pass your test. Anybody that didn't mean you well, the people that was on drugs and stuff, the people that didn't mean you well, I was trying to get you to separate, but it wasn't easy.
No. And I did feel torn between you and Matthew.
A lot of your, when you're trying to pull somebody away from a lot of what somebody's used to, when you try to pull them away from what they're used to, because they're used to it, they'll go back to it.
Absolutely.
And that was a lot of the problems that I had.
Foster Mum said to me at one point, Steve, if you'd only been with us from sort of 10 years of age, we'd have had a lot longer with you, but I went to them like 13.
Yeah. I
liken it to me moving through this system at like 200 miles an hour. And with my carers, what they did is they applied the brakes. So when I left their care, I was still moving very fast, causing damage, the cannabis hanging around among people. And then when you came into my life, I think what you did was you almost complemented the support that they'd already given to me, and you slowed it down even further. Now, as you know, I went on to become stabbed. And at that point, we didn't know which way that was going to go.
Pain as well. I remember I left home quite early, and I had to read a book on regression. I did my self-help. In those days we had tapes. I did self-esteem. I had a tape called Self-Esteem. I had one called. There were 3 tapes when I went to this group, and one was self-esteem, one was self-confidence, and also I read this book on regression and actually dealt with some of the things in my childhood. Went back home and dealt with some of the pain with my parents. So what I'm trying to say is, so there was me relating some of my pain as a young man, relating, and I think it's about relating.
It's true.
Yeah. If a teacher's just teaching and not relating, they've lost it.
Yeah.
If you're doing social work because it's a good job, and if you're fostering because it's you get good money, and it's got to be the right reasons. Yeah. I mean, what helped with me was my parents, because my mum and dad were exceptional, to the extent where they annoyed me, because they would buy us Christmas presents, but we're trying to buy everybody else Christmas presents in church.
Yeah.
They'd be looking after other people's children. They'd be fostering over 14 kids. They'd be doing this. They'd all be reaching out to people. So I constantly saw my parents giving love. Yeah. Constantly saw my mum would go and bathe the older ladies in church and make sure their shopping's done. My dad would basically, I remember he had this Thames van. He'd pick us up from school and we'd say, Dad, can you such and such? Yes, let them come. So the van would be packed out, and my dad would stop off at each road to drop these people off. And no, my dad, I had to be pulling my hands out of my dad's hand, because he'd want to be holding my hands on the street when I was in my senior school and stuff like that. No, but I grew up in a very loving home, so that helped a lot. Very stable, loving home. So
yeah. And you spoke before about when you got that young tree, what your mum and dad offered you was that strength, so you could even grow your roots, and then you could actually become.
To be honest, my relationship with my dad wasn't that great, to be honest.
Right.
Because remember, you're
talking about little Dave here.
Yeah.
How little Dave? How far?
I think because remember, parents, especially fathers, they do a lot of discipline.
Yeah. So
my relationship with my dad wasn't that great. They do a lot of discipline. There's a lot of resentment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of resentment type of thing. A lot of they grew up in Jamaica. They didn't have this sitting down. And can you tell what's going on? Yeah. I do remember one time I was very, very rude to my dad.
Yeah.
Or rude about my dad. And my mum slapped me in my face and said, "Don't you talk to your father like that." And I never forget this. My dad said, "No, honey, leave him alone.
Yeah.
Let's see what's inside him." So my dad wanted me to be rude to see what's inside me.
Yeah.
Or he wanted me to express myself.
Yeah.
But they never really had that time where they sat you down and allowed you to
express,
deal with emotions and experience.
Yeah.
So whilst he was a loving father, we wouldn't want you to want for anything. That kind of connection.
Absolutely.
There was 2 things about you. One is you're very self-driven. Considering that you've grown up in care, you have never really ever been on what we call social security. Even when you lost your job at the factory, you kept on coming to my house with newspapers and just sitting there and just literally going through the different things, you know what I mean, and trying to apply for different jobs. And I remember saying to you, Steve, why don't you use your experience?
Yeah.
Why don't you use your experience? And you said, what experience? I said, the fact that you've grown up in care.
Yeah.
Why don't you apply for a residential job? Because I thought you'd matured enough. I thought you'd come to a place where I felt you could give back.
Yeah.
It was how driven you are. When you set your mind to do so, I saw you focused on focusing on all the aspects of the theory of learning to drive and doing it. I saw you setting your mind, hey, can you come over and just help me revise? Can you come on? And I'm saying, Steve, I can't. Yeah, I've got to do this. I've got to. You know, you were so focused. When you set your mind to something, you're so focused. And one of the things you used to say to me is, I want to have purpose. I want to have purpose. I want to have purpose. So that was some.
Yeah, I remember saying that. Yeah.
You know, Dave, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? So these are things. So when you did start this element thing, it didn't really start with elements. It started with this. It started with you working in a children's home and having these little programs that you wanted to sell to schools and sell to these little programs, and then when you got the word elements, and then you got frustrated because people and different everybody's got different opinions. Oh, don't like the word element, and I said, Steve, just stick with. You know, you got very frustrated. I said, stick with the word elements, because just like Marks and Spencer's or HM or any other business, it's not what they say, it's what it creates afterwards. It's you branding it you branding it with your purpose. So I think a couple of people had discouraged you from the word elements, and I said, look, Steve, forget them. Just keep with the word elements, because you're ready to change it. And I thought,
because everyone kept saying this, it's like the periodic table. Like,
is that what they said?
Yeah. So it's like when we think of elements, we think of earth, wind, fire and water.
Oh, is that what they said?
That's what people were saying, like the elements of the earth. I think it was just all about one size doesn't fit all. You know, there are multiple elements at play here.
Whatever name that you used didn't really matter. It was the substance of what you had to offer. Initially, you wanted to offer these things because you tried to implement them into the children's home.
Yeah. And
then I remember you did this excellent, because you actually spoke to the manager and asked if I could come over to the children's home and do this mural. Which I did, this abstract mural on the wall.
Yes.
And you'd also done this. You'd done this excellent collage on the wall where you'd used a lot of famous people who had different.
It was a be inspired wall. So I used multiple celebrities that had gone through the care system to give the children inspiration.
Right. So I'd seen you on a journey where you had used, basically, you were using your skills to create a package that people could use that would help other young people.
Absolutely.
So when you said elements to me, I wasn't really seeing the word elements. I was seeing the substance of what you'd already shown me.
Right, the contents.
Yes.
Yeah.
When the first children's home that you applied to asked me to do a reference, my reference was that whatever you put your mind to, you're very focused. I remember writing that down. You're very focused. Whatever you'll stick at, and you'll master it because you're focused.
Why do you think that is? Because you know my history and my childhood experiences.
Because
why do children in care? Because it's not just me. There's multiple children in care. They are very focused.
I don't know if it's because you know that you can't run to daddy and mommy, and there's nobody to back you up. But for the quality of you being focused that I see in you, I don't see in many people. That sense of focus that I see in you, that determination, that drivenness. And I actually think I see that in you, because you felt that, well, nobody else is going to help me. I haven't got anybody else. And I believe that your foster carers, the last foster carers, helped to instill that in you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
That's my opinion. Because they showed you certain things, which I think allowed you to form another element of a platform of where you base yourself.
Question is, Stephen, what would your life be like if you'd never met back up with Dave? If Dave had never come back into your life.
There was a guy that you was hanging around with.
Yeah.
That I felt was no good for you, and because of his smoking.
Yeah.
and probably I don't know where he's at, but you probably would be where he's at, which is if he's gone on to stronger stuff. I don't know, but you'd probably be somewhere he's at, because the thing about it is, I think the element of stability that I was able to bring, allowing you to come into my family, meet my family, because even then you still wanted even at the age of 17, you wanted to be fostered. You said, "Oh, can I come and live with you?" It was a sense of still wanting to belong.
Yeah.
So, or at purpose, because that was one of your main words. I want to have purpose. I want to have meaning to my life. Maybe you wouldn't have ended up like the person, because there was something about you that was very focused.
Maybe your sort of advice, recommendation is going to be different for, say, a social worker to a teacher to a foster carer, because they've all got different types of relationships.
Right.
You know, the teacher says
with the teacher now. Most teachers, they go into the profession to teach, but it's become, with the problems that of the world and the way things have gone, teaching and social work are now very, very close, intertwined.
Very true.
You cannot teach. How can you try to teach someone sitting in a classroom that's full of problems and burdens, and you don't know how, right now they know when they get back home they're going to be beaten, or they when they get back home their parents are going to be swearing at them 24/7, or whether they don't know whether they're going to have a dinner when they go home. So social work and teaching is very important, because you're teaching them by the way that you present yourself as an adult, of what an adult is.
Absolutely.
So my aspect to teaching to teachers is to always remember that when you're trying to impart knowledge to a child, how full is their brain with the problems? How much can you take? How much overload can someone take? Why do I want to learn or focus on a lesson when my mom's in an emergency unit fighting for her life? So what I'm trying to say is that whatever the problem is for that particular young person, if you don't have a relationship with them, you don't really know what they're masking. So I'd say to teachers, it's so important to connect.
But how do they build that relationship with those barriers? How do they go about it?
How do they go about it?
Because a lot of teachers will say things like, and it's not, part of it might be excuse, some of it's not an excuse, I don't have the time. Well, Dave, I've got 30 students in a classroom, maybe 8 of them could really do with some extra additional support, but I haven't got all that time.
Well, it's all about how you respond, because at the end of the day, I have a teacher that I'm still in touch with. She came to my wedding. I asked her, I said, oh, she was an artist, and she used to let us come to her house in the summer times, and we used to paint and draw and stuff. And yeah, she's got to be in her 80s, and she's still doing art now. Wow. But what I'm saying, I'm still in touch with her now.
Yeah.
Now, I remember from my primary school, coming to induct us, to take us to say, right, you guys will be going into senior school, and I still remember,
the transition.
I remember the transition. I remember her as a young woman, and I remember her as an old. You get what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So it's all about connection. Even although she lost something very precious to me, that my mum bought me for Christmas, because I lent her a calligraphy book.
Okay.
And I don't know whether she left it in the classroom or left it somewhere, but that book was so precious to me from my mum, and I lent it to her, and she lost it, and that didn't break our relationship.
Okay.
So it's about connection. When you feel that somebody, when someone cares.
Yes.
When somebody's doing a job. So I would say, as a teacher, yes, you're dealing with 33 or 24 people in the class. Never embarrass. Even if a young person embarrasses you in front of the class and tries to make you look stupid, don't do it to them, because your ego or their ego can't take it, no matter how they carry on.
100%.
They can't take it.
And something else that I think needs to come to a stop, needs to come to a halt? When you've got children that arrive to school late, because there's very quick an assumption that you're late because it's your fault. You got out of bed late, you came here late, Now, Could you imagine a society where you arrive to work late and you know that you've got some serious issues going on at home, but your manager says in front of everybody in the office, Dave, why are you late? And you know the reason why you're late. Because you got a lot of trouble going home. But now your manager's put you in a position where he wants you to tell everybody why you're late. Because this is what I see in schools. A child will arrive to the school in reception, they've got a long queue of them, and yes, of course, there's going to be some of them that are late because they've just decided to dawdle to school or because they don't want to, whatever that might be. But for Lacey and for Dylan and Mackenzie, maybe they're late. Maybe Lacey's late because she's been up all night listening to her dad screaming at mum. There's a great quotation. It goes, good teachers turn up to teach, great teachers turn up to learn.
That's what I'm trying to say. And now, if I told people what happened to me at school, they'd never believe it. I used to go to school and I used to have diarrhea a lot of times just going to school.
Okay.
Because it was very middle class. It was, when I say middle class, it was white teachers. It was, there were black people in my school. Don't get me wrong. There was quite a few black people. Yeah. But I even looked at a picture of my particular class in my senior school, and I was the only black person in my class.
Right.
But I'm just saying it was more the elements of me trying to be on the same level. In terms of, how should I put?
To fit in?
Fit in, yeah. Some of that was to do with wealth. Some of that was to do with just what they could have. They would have on PE day in the cold. They would have a tracksuit. I would be in shorts, freezing. I'm just fitting in sometimes. In lots of aspects would make somebody avoid going to school for a particular day.
Absolutely.
Or being late to miss a lesson, so there's so many different things. So it's all about understanding that individual. Just taking time to understand that individual. Like I think there was something that you said once when you did a talk in the NEC about a kid basically being nasty to you or being negative, and then you just said, how was your day, or have a nice day, or you turned it on its head. You didn't respond back to their negativity. And it's about not taking that thing personal.
That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think that's what a lot of us do. We kind of take it to heart, like, oh, it must be me.
Yeah.
So I talk a lot about the uncontrollable barriers to connection, and one of those barriers is sense perception. The idea that a child might smell, see, taste, or hear something that sends a message to their brain that relates to their trauma. So a good example of that might be that, let's say you've got 4-year-old Dylan. 4-year-old Dylan, mum's making some toast for lunch.
Yeah.
Dad comes in really aggressive, starts beating mum, starts attacking mum. Dylan hides under the table, scared, worried. He's watching his dad attack his mum in a brutal manner. The toast that mum was making for Dylan is still in the toaster, but now it's burning, and the alarm's gone off, and the smell of burnt toast is in the air. Fast forward 10 years, Dylan's now 14. What do you think happens when he smells burnt toast and an alarm going off? Whoosh, his brain goes straight back to the traumatic episode, and now his fight, flight, or freeze human responses have been triggered. And then we wonder, why is he doing that? He's fine, in residential. He was fine a minute ago. And all of a sudden, that's because there's different trigger points happening. I worked with a mum once. when I was doing family support, and I started working with her and her daughter. I was working with her daughter in the school, and I had to go and do home visits as well. And she kept on calling me Mr. Russell. And I was like, you can call me Stephen, it's up to you. And she went, no, I'll call you Mr. Russell, it's fine. I was like, okay, go with that. Anyway, we come to the end of the programme, so I'm curious to find out why you kept on calling me Mr. Russell. And she went, I can't call you Steve or Stephen. I was like, why not? And she went, my ex-husband, his name was Stephen. And every time I think of him and say that name, it makes me physically sick.
I just feel that sometimes we as humans think that we're always going to have it right. We're not always going to have it right. I just feel that sometimes you may never connect with that particular child. You may never connect with... It's not... You can't force something. You can't put a piece of jigsaw puzzle of a square into a round.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So
absolutely. But I think it's more from the point of view, what are you prepared to do? What are you willing to do? Who are you willing to become? At any point, you could have said to me, Steve, listen, I've come to the house, I've done the support work with you, I've done the confidence building, I've did what I can. As far as I'm concerned now, this is, you could have done that at any point.
I thought I said that lots of times.
And you were back?
Yeah, because part of that was because You called me. If you need. If
You didn't have to answer the phone. You didn't have to come down.
Yeah, but the element of it's not a job, is it? So you're a life. You're a being. You're a life. You're not. If a need is a need.
Yeah.
And because I'm not doing this as a job, and I'm responding to a need.
Do you think that's the difference sometimes with the titles of job titles of social worker, of foster care, of teacher, of mentor, that the actual title almost diminishes the human aspect?
It does it all the time, not just with that, but with everything. It does it in the church. Titles. I say that
Status.
It's not a title. It's a responsibility, and all of these positions, whether it be a doctor, responsibility.
Yeah.
Whether it be a teacher, responsibility. It's all responsibility. You are responsible because you fit in to provide a need where somebody else cannot help themselves. It's about responsibility, and you either see it as a responsibility and then realize, you know what, I'm on holiday, but as a doctor, that person's dying.
Yes.
I'm on holiday. I've taken my kids away, and I should be relaxing now.
Duty of care.
Yeah. Now that's the element. It's the care bit. Do you care enough? And this is why I always say, just put your child in that picture. Don't see that person as that person. See them as your child. Just imagine that being you, and watch the way that you hear the teacher speaking to them. How would you respond?
That's a key point, isn't it?
Put your kid in that position, or put yourself as a young person in that position.
I was going to say, what about for the people that don't have children?
Put yourself in that position. Awareness is very important. Awareness is so important.
So I'm 23 years of age, and I contact you to let you know that Lorna's pregnant. Your first thoughts are?
My first thoughts were nothing. My first thoughts was just hearing you frustrated down the phone.
Life's over.
Yeah, I didn't have any thoughts. I'm just listening to somebody in distress.
Yeah.
I'm just listening to somebody in distress and thinking, you mean to say?
I was straight in the car,
and to my
straight over to you, and I remember I said to you, Dave, I'm not ready to be a dad. And then you said to me, but your son is ready for you to be a dad.
Yeah.
And then my heart was like, boom, like, okay, this means something. And then within a matter of months, Lorna's belly's getting bigger, and I'm out late night shopping at Asda getting all these toys. I'm even hearing about you can use certain oils to induce the baby.
I remember that one. I remember the castor oil thing.
The castor oil, that was
David, should I give a castor oil?
Oh, do you know what? I went into Asda, like this is like early hours in the morning. I'm looking because they've got all the oils in Asda, and I'm looking at them. And I said to the lady, I said, have you got any castor oil? And she was like, she went, what do you want castor oil for? And I went, like, I heard it induces the baby. And the look she gave me, she went, you must be mad. She just like I was abusive or something, like, she went, you must be mad. So I've got a question here from Paul McDonald on LinkedIn. He's asked, what does it feel like to see the progress that Stephen has made in his life and the man he has become today, from the love, kindness and support, safety and security that you have given to him continually? What does that feel like?
I don't know if it's all me, because Stephen's very self-driven, and I know it sounds strange for me to say that, but I think it was already in Stephen. He's so self-driven. He's the type of young man that will not accept defeat. If you threw him in the water with a weight on him, I'm sure he'd find a way of getting out of that weight and coming on top. He really is self-driven. I don't know where that stems from. I think I've just been there to help to guide him. Yes, I admit that I've been there continually, but I don't take all the credit, because I believe that you cannot, no matter what you put into your kids. There's parents that have given their kids everything and have supported their kids, and their kids have not got the mindset to achieve. Their kids have not got that mindset to grasp or to become someone. Stephen is so driven. From I remember him, he always used to say, Dave, I want to have purpose. What's my purpose? He was always questioning himself. So yes, I feel good that God's used me to guide him and support him, but I don't take the credit. But I do feel good. It makes me feel good. it really does make me feel good to know that all the time that I've injected in is not being a waste of time.
Because of the work that I do now with Elements, it's inspired me to be that person for them. Not in the capacity that you were for me, because you went, when I think about you, you've gone way, way, way up there. Like, you know, the late nights picking me up off Broad Street when I'm drunk, when I've crashed my cars, you've been there. When I got stabbed, you were there. You were the first person that I come to when I found out that Lorna was pregnant. Like, there's certain things that you've done that was just like, for me, it was like astronomical. Like, you were way out there, like pinnacle of connection. But if I can even aspire to be close to that for a lot of the children and young people that I'm supporting, then 100% I feel like I'll be doing them a great service based on what you've instilled into me. The level of compassion, the level of optimism, and I have to use the word optimism because you have been optimistic about me, where so many adults in my history have been pessimistic. He's hard to reach, you know, he's cold, he's stubborn, he's selfish, you know, all these types of things. Whereas you've listened to that and you've seen it, but you haven't let it guide you. If you'd let it guide you, you'd be like, Steve, we can't do this anymore, mate. I've had enough. But you've gone past that and you've seen, I understand that Stephen displays some of these behaviours because of where he's coming from, but I also understand that everybody else has let him go.
I think some of that was probably fear as well. That if I did let you go, what would happen? And I didn't want another John scenario. I'm just being honest with you. A lot of that probably was fear. Of I couldn't live with myself if anything happened as well. So when I say fear, yes, it was driven by love, but the fact of me stepping out when you needed me the most, I would beat myself up to say that I caused that. If you see what I'm saying.
100%.
But I now know that you're stable enough. But I'm saying I had to choose the time when to be able to pull back.
It's almost like you had to build this scaffolding around me.
Right.
And now that the house has been sort of erected, it's like, okay, now some of that can come off, you know.
Because there were times that I used to say, Steve, I'm out of here, and you said, no, you can't leave me, can't leave. And I used to say, yes, I can. And then, but now, I feel that you're able to. I mean, my greatest joy is to see you inject all that back into your children, into Malachi, Corey, and Alyssa. That would be my greatest joy. That they can speak of you like you speak of me.
Absolutely.
Regardless of all the other children in schools, that your children can turn around. Yes, you weren't ever shown how to be a father. You didn't have a dad there, but I've seen the relationship you have with yours. And if that could be sustained and fortified,
nourished,
that would be my greatest joy.
100%.
Joanne Feaster from LinkedIn, another great connection of mine. Hello, Joanne. Has said, I'd like to know what you think the biggest barriers to connection were from your perspective as a child, Stephen, and from Dave's perspective as a carer. Do these barriers still exist for the children today? What's changed for the better or worse? What's one of the most important things to know about when connecting, and how to do it for those completely new to this concept?
I think the biggest barrier was social services, the red tape, about touching contact with a child. Yes, there's risk involved because a child could accuse you, but I think contact is so important. And while I was in care, there was this thing about contact misunderstood. The child can accuse you, this and that. And I think sometimes it's not about words, it's just about reassuring a child. And I remember being in care, that was one of the biggest barriers. You know,
sometimes a kid just needs a hug.
I'm quite tactile, so I got myself in trouble a lot of times, just for the innocency of being warm to a child. When I say in trouble, I mean in the sense to say that staff, you're not meant to touch a child, you're not meant to do, you know what I mean? But I grew up in a very loving home. I grew up in a very loving environment, so that was nothing for me. But other staff members who probably grew up in a home where their parents weren't affectionate with them, they found it like as if to say you're doing something.
That's just like alien to me.
Alien to them. So that was one of the biggest barriers.
Because we live in a society now when you do this type of social work, or you're a teacher or a foster carer, not so much foster care, but a child is wanting affection. They want to get a hug or something. It's like, I'm feeling low, can I get a hug? And it's like, we're always told, like in family support, if a child hugs you, you just stand there with your arms down like this. And it's like, it was so alien to me.
Oh, you went through that as well?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Part of the reason why I came out of the company that I was with was because of a situation where I'd been working with a child. You know, I think she was like 9 years of age. She'd lost her dad in a serious accident, and we'd done a 12-week project together. And we went on this amazing journey. She did all this arts and crafts, colourful stuff. She made stuff for her dad's grave. It was absolutely brilliant. Come to the end, she was really upset that we'd come to the end. And she came up to me and she says, "I'm going to miss you." And she gave me a hug. And I went, "You know what, I'm going to miss you as well." Do you know what I mean? And I put that in the notes. I wrote it in the notes. They read the notes back and they were upset about it. Why did you hug this child back? Did you have to hug this child back? What was anybody else around? Listen, you're making this something that it doesn't necessarily need to be. We're talking about a child that's gone through bereavement, that has reached out for a hug, and you're asking me to stand there with my arms straight down by my side and not show any emotion back to her. We're finishing. We're coming to the end. Even her mum, because they had to contact the mum to say, you know, just to let you know, there's an investigation going on with Stephen. They had to speak to the mum. The mum was like, "Not a problem. That's what I'd expect him to do. Like, my child's reaching out. They're finishing. They're coming to an end." So they was like, "Okay, that's cool." But I think at that point I realised to myself, like, yeah, I need to come out of this. I need to set my own thing up. I think for me, one of the biggest barriers that I had to connecting with a lot of the adults in my life was the fact that there was so many inconsistencies. You know, you've got to imagine that I've gone with a group of adults, I've got used to them, this new family, and I'm building up a rapport, building up a relationship, and then for whatever reason that's failed and I've had to move to a different one. And it just was a constant reset. For me, that was a huge barrier because it meant that I couldn't trust people, and particularly adults. I couldn't trust the adults in my life. I couldn't trust the teachers because I was going to move to a different school. I couldn't trust my foster carer because I was going to move to a different home. And that became the pattern of my life. So by the time that I'd got to sort of 12, 13 years of age, my blueprint is adults are scary people. Adults are dangerous people. Don't connect with them.
Wow.
So yeah,
really, is that how strong it was?
That was pretty much my blueprint. Yeah. Can't connect with people because they're just going to let you go. You can't connect with people because they're just going to move you on anyway. What's the point in making friends in a school when they're just going to change your school? You know.
And that's how you really, really saw it.
Yeah, 100%. Wow. And that's why part of the reason that I felt alone in the world was because I felt isolated from everybody. I felt that it's just me in the world. I remember you as a compassionate, warm individual that had my best interests at heart. I felt that you had my back out, I felt you had my corner. I remember a lot of the trips we went on, you were very close to me in that respect. But I think there would always be a part that remained that you were still another adult. It wasn't really until we reconnected that it almost kind of just aligned back, and then it felt right. It just felt universal. It felt like this was always meant to be. And I also think it's about being true to who you are as well. You know, like I talk about as well in some of the workshops, knowing your limits. You know, for some people, the limits is I can't go that far with these children because, like you mentioned before, I'm still trying to deal with stuff, but I can't talk to them about that. So I'm just going to go as far as I can. Now, you going that far might just mean that, you know, Dylan walks into school on a Monday morning and you just say to Dylan, "Hey Dylan, how was your weekend? You know, how did your game go? I know you had a game on the weekend. How's your mum doing? I know she's in hospital at the moment." So you're paying an interest into Dylan. That in itself is far more tangible to Dylan than another person, teacher, whoever that might be, just saying, I don't know, "How did you get on with your homework, Dylan?" You know, because Dylan's going to think, actually, I feel a bit more of a connection to Miss Smith because she actually pays an interest into my own, you know, what's going on at home. She knows my mum's in and out of hospital at the moment. She's paying an interest there. It's more than school. It's more than work. It's more than academia and curriculum. It's actually an interest in who I am as a person. You know, my mum, my sister. And then Dylan's like, "Do you know what? I feel connected. I feel a little bit more connected."
Even when we see them, just put on a smile and just smile.
Yeah.
Allows them to feel that. You're
that
welcoming.
Connection.
You're welcoming.
The warmth. Drip by drip, day by day, or in this case, drip by drip, Dave by Dave, is we imagine the child or young person to be going through this cold, lonely world. They're by themselves, they're isolated, nobody cares about me. I'm just left in this world to be cold. I'm moving from placement to placement. And as they become colder, the ice gets thicker and thicker. Now I talk about 3 ways to approach the ice. So when we're dealing with Dylan or Lacey that they've been through these experiences, how do we approach them? Well, we can have an apathetic approach, which is apathy, where it's not really my problem. You know, I'm just here to teach you. I don't really care too much about your problems. Everyone's got problems, Lacey. It's not just you. That type of attitude. Oh, do you know what? If we have to exclude her, we'll exclude her. Yeah? There's no connection whatsoever. Then the other approach is, so the apathy, it's we ignore the ice or we break it. If we're breaking it, we're compounding the trauma. If we ignore it, we're just trying to pretend it's not a problem when we know it is a problem. Sympathy is we're trying to mould or sculpt it. All right, so we see the ice, we know there's some issues going on, but we don't quite like the way that looks. So we're going to try and polish you up here. We're going to try and chip away at the ice there, and just modelled students. We're going to try and mould you into the way that we want. We've got Ofsted in tomorrow, so we can't have Dylan running around the school like a crazed maniac. We need to make sure that he's, can we just move him to that room, please, just in case they see him, that type of thing. So sympathy is pity. I feel sorry for him. He's been around 8 times, 8 moves. Oh no, I feel bad for him. Could you imagine what that must be like for him? Yeah. There's not really a connection now. The empathy is melting the ice. We notice the ice, we appreciate the ice, and we're not trying to rip it out, we're not trying to change it or mould it or sculpt it. We're saying we see it. But we're going to radiate warmth. What does that look like? But it looks like a compassionate standpoint. So you have acted as a radiator in my life. You are a radiating, warm human being. That's who you are. And whoever comes across you, if anybody ever has the pleasure of meeting you, they will feel that radiation from you. Because it's not what you say and it's not what you do, it's how you make people feel. And you made me feel wanted, you made me feel...
I'm so pleased I was there for you, I really am. I'm so pleased. You've achieved so much, Steve. You really have. And it's not just me, it's you. It's your determination. It's your determination. And I'm still here, no matter how old you get.
Getting a bit bolder now.
No, but the thing about it is, humans have a journey. And the thing about not everybody else is... Listen, there's so many guys that ended up twocking cars and dying, going to jail and not coming out. And you've actually done it because you were saying, I'm not going to turn out like my dad. I'm not going to turn out like some of those in care. I'm going to make something with my life.
All I care for the night. F-I-N-E-S-S-E, if it be the reason why your baba want to jealous me. If you want to take I'm serious, I do top speed. No fit to resonate, I'm on a different frequency. I don't think it's necessary. I be done with just somebody that could do like me. Man, I be like Musala coming off the right wing. I got to your defender, you no need to tell me. I'm a horse, finesse. And send me, I'm a snap. I go carry go. If me, I got money past you. If you're not careful, finesse. Send me, I'm a snap. I go carry go. If me, I got money past you. If you're not careful,
finesse. If I broke, now my business. I'ma show you go right. All I care for the night. Finesse. If I broke, now my business. I'ma show you go right. All I care for the night. Finesse. If I broke, now my business. I'ma show you go right. All I care for the night. Finesse. If I broke, now my business. I'ma show you go right. All I care for the night. Didi makula yo. Ẹ má fẹjọ́ mi sùn wọ́n. Ẹ má fẹjọ́ mi sùn wọ́n.